Coming up, Max Scherzer is ejected, but the Mets still get a win, and Aaron Judge does a little bit of everything for the Yankees. This is Locked On Game to Game, MLB.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game MLB. Local experts join us to go over the biggest stories in baseball and recap all of the action for you from Wednesday. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. The Cubs are rolling right now. They racked up another win over Oakland on Wednesday night. Locked On Cubs goes over all of the names that you need to know after the win.
Another day, another Cubs victory. The Chicago Cubs dominate the Oakland A's, complete the sweep. There's so many lists of individual things. I don't even know where to get to first. I'll start with Justin Steele, who was absolutely tremendous again. Marcus Stroman and Justin Steele have been as good of a 1-2 punch as anybody in baseball so far, starting baseball games. Patrick Wisdom had another huge hit. Dansby Swanson, 3 walks. Ian Happ on fire from the left side. Nico Horner leading off great. The Cubs are 11-6. They've won 4 in a row. And now they have a very interesting 7-game homestand against the Los Angeles Dodgers and the San Diego Padres. 2 teams with title aspirations that aren't off to great starts, and the Cubs are. Going to be very interesting to see how they fare in those 2 series. The Cubs are rolling. It's a good time to be a Cub fan. Let's keep it going.
It was a slim victory, but a win nonetheless for San Diego. Locked On Padres goes over how things went down against Atlanta.
Thank God. My lordy. What's going on, guys? Javier Reyes here of the Locked On Padres podcast. Hanging out with Pac-Man and Tatis here. Hanging out with them because with Spider-Man behind me, the Padres are getting their butts kicked. Only 2 runs over their last 4 games, including today. Today, of course, the game-winning home run, it turns out, from Juan Soto, who has been struggling. Granted, I expect him to bounce back as an offensive player. Still a lot of questions about the defense, and he has been disappointing for the most part of the season, considering the batting average, obviously, which everyone talks about, and especially considering this $500+ million extension and all that he might command. So it's been really disappointing there, but Manny Machado hasn't been as good either, so he deserves a lot of blame, but some cool defensive wizardry. And lastly, Nick Martinez, the Swiss Army knife type of pitcher for the Padres, a really nice start. So all in all, salvages the series, and hopefully this is the beginning, and hopefully this is the last time we will not see El Nino, Mr. Fernando Tatis Jr. in the lineup. Hopefully that comes tomorrow, but we'll just have to sit and wait and see, because that's also going to be a tough series against a very talented and upcoming Diamondbacks team. For more info on the Padres, though, of course, stay tuned to the podcast, and of course, always stay faithful.
The Mets get it done on the road at Dodger Stadium. Locked On Mets is in with a very quick recap.
The New York Mets found a way to beat the Los Angeles Dodgers in their 3-game set. Brandon Nimmo was unbelievable in the game. 5 for 5, a homer, great defense all over the place. He has been just a revelation for the Mets this year, continuing off of an outstanding 2022 campaign. And the Mets were able to overcome the loss of Max Scherzer, who was ejected from the game for a sticky substance. We're going to discuss all of that on tomorrow's show and preview what lies ahead, as the Mets are set to take on the San Francisco Giants in a 4-game set to close out this week and to close out this grueling West Coast trip.
An extra innings victory for the Yankees as they take one from the Angels on Wednesday. Locked On hosts from both teams are in to give you all the details.
Well, you can't win if you can't score, and that's what happened to the Angels on Wednesday. What's going on, everybody? It's John Frisch, one half of Locked On Angels. The Halos dropped Game 2 of this Yankees set 3-2 in extra innings. I know, I hate Rob Manfred and his rules too, his ghost runner rule, but the issue here with the Angels is that the lineup went 1 for 15 with runners in scoring position. No clutch at bats, nobody coming through, and it's just very unfortunate after a great outing from Griffin Canning, who only gave up the bad fastball to Aaron Judge, which was a 2-run home run, and that was it. The rest of the offense for the Yankees could not get to Griffin Canning, and he pitched 5 1/3 innings pitched in only his second start back since July 2021. And really it just comes down to not delivering with runners in scoring position. I know Mike Trout had that strikeout that was not quite a swing, but they called it a swing anyway. Phil Nevin got ejected. Just frustrating all around. Mike and I are going to talk about this one on Locked On Angels, and we hope you'll join us.
This is Stacey Gotsoulias of Locked On Yankees, and the Yankees beat the Angels 3-2 in 10 innings. Holy cow. Is anyone else exhausted from watching that game? It's mid-April. We shouldn't be well, all right, it's almost near the end of April, but we shouldn't be this stressed about a game in April. And yet there we were stressed out about a game against the Angels. Aaron Judge hit a 2-run home run in the bottom of the first. That was all the Yankees did until the bottom of the 10th when Gleyber Torres hit his sac fly. Aaron Judge also robbed Shohei Ohtani of his own home run in the top of the first. And the Yankees pitchers did a pretty good job keeping Ohtani at bay. And Wandy Peralta, in a really big spot in the top of the 7th, got Shohei Ohtani to strike out. So it was a frustrating game, but the end result was good. We'll have everything you need to know about this game on the next Locked On Yankees. And don't forget, Wednesday's game is a 4:05 start.
The Cardinals and Giants avoid the sweep in their series finales. This is Locked On Game to Game MLB. Today's edition of Locked On Game to Game is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It's the perfect time. Baseball is back. You got to download the app. New customers get that no sweat first bet of up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. You just have to go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up and place that first bet, and you can get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel is an official partner of Major League Baseball. Welcome back. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game MLB. I'm Kainani Stevens. Thank you again for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Was a blowout in the series finale between the Diamondbacks and the Cardinals. St. Louis finally getting a win in the series. Locked On Diamondbacks goes over what went wrong in the last game.
With Madison Bumgarner on the mound, the D-backs were shellacked 14-5 in the series finale against the St. Louis Cardinals. Miller Thomas of Locked On Diamondbacks here. At least the D-backs were still able to win the series and take 2 out of 3 from the Cardinals because Madison Bumgarner, who has been bad all season, fact check, has been bad since signing with the D-backs, arguably the worst starting pitcher in baseball since day one with Arizona. Further cemented that point with this start against the Cardinals because he gave up 7 earned runs in the first 3 innings, home runs allowed, 4 walks allowed. Madison Bumgarner has just not looked like the Madison Bumgarner we thought we were signing, and it's been that way for 4 seasons now. So the D-backs now have questions about whether he'll make his next start in the rotation because it's been so bad. And if you ask me, it's probably better to give him a little rest and maybe skip that turn in the rotation. So we'll see what happens there. But D-backs play the San Diego Padres next. Need a big bounce back for that series because Fernando Tatis Jr. will be making his debut on 420, and I would love to spoil his return.
Toronto loses big in Houston, but Locked On Blue Jays is in, looking at the bright side after the loss.
Hello, friends. Craig Ballard, Locked On Blue Jays. 8-1 finish now. It ended ugly. Was a close game through 7.5 innings, but the Blue Jays ultimately do lose. You could really see it wasn't the Blue Jays' night when they were down 2-1 in the top of the 8th inning, bases loaded, nobody out, and George Springer, who was struggling mightily, hits an absolute rocket, but right at third baseman Alec Bregman. Right in that moment, kind of got the feeling, oh boy, you know what? It's not the night for the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, the loss does drop them to 11-8 overall in the season, 7-6 overall on the road. I'm going to say I'll take it. Cannot be happy with the offense in this Houston Astros series, but big picture-wise, 11-8 start to the season, I'm going to say I'll take it. Jose Barrios was excellent tonight, lived on the corners. The problem with Barrios is there's always a crooked number inning in there, and where he really gets in trouble is when he has multiple, right, games with multiple crooked number innings. Well, tonight, there was just one run of 3 batters where everything from pitch selection to location to sequence, where all of it was just a blunder. Other than that, Barrios, again, second start in a row, was good tonight.
San Fran has really been struggling on their road trip, but the pitching came through for them last night against Miami. Locked On Giants has more for us postgame.
The Giants get a desperately needed win in Miami. They were in danger of going 0-5 on this road trip through Detroit and Miami, and it was a familiar script early on. The Giants got the first run of the game, but then they went ice cold for much of the rest of the game. But this time, the pitching just held firm. Alex Cobb had a really nice start, and the bullpen pretty much from start to finish since they came in, did a really good job of just keeping the Marlins off the board. And it was 1-1 going into extra innings. Giants had struggles again in extra innings in the top of the 10th, couldn't push across a run, but a clutch job to keep them off the board in the bottom of the 10th despite the free runner. Top of the 11th, the Giants finally break through, hit a couple of home runs left on left, Michael Conforto and Mike Yastrzemski. So just clutch homers, clutch pitching. Great start by Alex Cobb and a desperately needed win for the Giants. Happy flight across the country coming back home. So we just broke this one down on the latest Locked On Giants. Check it out. It's your team every day.
It was a quick 2-game sweep for the Orioles over the Nats. They now have bragging rights in that DMV, Maryland area. But Locked On Orioles goes over just how they got that impressive win to go down.
It's hard to lose games when you do not give up any runs at all. And that's what the O's did in this 2-game set in D.C. They complete the 2-game sweep with a 4-0 win over the Nationals on Wednesday night. First time since 1995 that the Orioles have shut out an entire 2-game series against another team. Pretty impressive. Kyle Bradish returns from the injured list. It was like he never left. 6 scoreless innings with 6 Ks, just 1 walk for Bradish. Yeah, the Nats lineup is terrible, but you still got to get major league hitters out, and that's what Bradish did. The offense for the second straight night just did enough. Nice home run from Adam Frazier. The concerning part was Jorge Mateo leaving with injury. Hopefully he's fine. He has been huge for the O's, so hopefully he is okay. But the O's get the sweep either way. They won 7-9. And I'll recap it all coming up on Thursday's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
That'll do it for this edition of Locked On Game to Game MLB. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On MLB and your favorite team's Locked On podcast on YouTube and wherever else to get your podcasts from. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.